What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite topic in 2021, cryptocurrency. We're going to be talking about the currency component of cryptocurrency and the investing component of cryptocurrency. But we're going to be focusing on the investing component. Why? Because buying and selling or transacting in currencies is boring and making money is exciting, right? But unfortunately, we need to start with a history lesson about currencies to do that. So currencies have been around a really long time, right? Which is no shocker there. But currencies have been around as far as the first currency that has been reported was 3000 BC, and it was using Sumerian barley. And you say, well, that doesn't really make like that, who cares? Well, that was actually a really big deal because that basically said, hey, we have some trust system rather than having to deliver a physical product. Around the same time, Mesopotamia came out with using coins as a currency system around that same time. And I mean, the Mesopotamians, they've invented like everything, right? Those Mesopotamians, they had a lot of sophistication in their society. And so you have these currencies now and you say, wow, well, what does this do? Well, it allowed a trust system. So rather than having to buy a house and say, hey, I'm going to deliver 100 goats and I have to bring all those goats to the house, well, now you can use a currency to transact rather than having to deliver the physical product, which makes a lot of sense if you can establish that trust-based system. There's been a lot of other currencies, as you can imagine, that have been used through history. One of actually the more popular ones was seashells, and seashells were being used for about 4,000 years. So I mean, just imagine like running over to like a beach and grabbing a bunch of seashells and taking them all in, and all of a sudden you're like one of the richest guys around. Like, I wish that was today. Unfortunately, life isn't that way today. But some of the other currencies that have been really popular, gold and copper. So that is actually probably the most commonly or popular currency systems that have been used around. I mean, think about it, in 1900s, we were still using that in the US. So you weren't transacting in gold when you went out to dinner, but that was the currency it was being backed by gold, right? And there's been other systems, and you say, okay, well, how did we get to the paper dollar? Well, in 100 BC, the Chinese came up with the idea of using leather strips, because even though coins was a lot lighter than moving goats, it's still heavy. So then they said, hey, we need something lighter. They came up with the leather strips, and so then merchants could use these leather strips instead. And then years and years later, they came up with paper money. And then fast forward to 2008, and then you have virtual currencies that were born, which was Bitcoin. So in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto came up with the idea of creating a virtual currency. Now, virtual currencies, though, have kind of been around a little bit more or less. We just might not have thought about it a whole lot, but there's basically 3 different categories of virtual currency transactions. So one of them is having this closed loop ecosystem. So, hey, any gamers here, if you're a video gamer and you play Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons, some role-playing game RPG, in the game you might like fight monsters, do quests, you do certain things, and you get some sort of currency that is inside that game, in that system, and you can use it to purchase items and goods within that system, but it has no value outside of the system. So that's one system. Another system would be a unidirectional flow, which would be like Facebook credits or Nintendo credits, where you are using your dollars and you exchange them for those credits, and then you have to use your money within that closed loop ecosystem. The third is a bidirectional flow, which that's where cryptocurrency comes in, where you can move it and it can transact back and forth into these other systems. And there's those convenience factors to that. So you say, okay, well, where do these currencies actually come from? So great question. So these currencies literally come up out of nowhere. And that is where the ICO comes in. So initial coin offering, which sounds a lot like the term IPO, if you've ever heard that, which is a common term. If you're familiar with the stock market, that stands for initial public offering, in which case you are exchanging money for ownership of a company. So a company gets listed, so Apple gets on a big exchange and they say, hey, we're gonna give away a bunch of ownership, and then we take in a bunch of money. So an ICO is kind of similar. That's the idea. They're giving away a coin and then they're getting your money. Well, how do these ICOs actually get started? Well, they're really small scale. So you might only have a team of a couple people to create an ICO. And so then you say, wow, that's probably not regulated a whole lot, which ding, 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 you're totally right. There's not a lot of regulation. And that's where a lot of sirens go off, because anyone can basically create an ICO. So in 2016, there was 26 ICOs that came about. Now every year there's over 1,000 ICOs that are being created. So you're having all these currencies come out of thin air essentially. And what are they valued at? Well, is it like worth something like a company? Well, let's take a closer look at that. So coins are split up into basically two types of coins. So there's what's called utility coins, and then there's security coins. So utility coins, you just have a coin that's being used in that whatever service or that ecosystem, but you don't actually have a claim on anything, unlike a company where you have a claim on the business of being a voting member, or you have some sort of ownership or profits that you can derive from there. On the other side, there's what's called security coins, which do have voting rights and they do have claims to profits, but sometimes they don't have both. And those coins are the minority, not the majority of the coins. So that's really, really important to know. So most of these coins that people are buying, they have no claim to any sort of ownership of a company. So why does that matter when it comes to investing? Well, in investing, most things are tied to some sort of economic logic. So if you bought a house and you bought a lemonade stand, there's a range of values you're probably willing to buy or sell. And you say, well, that might change over time based on supply and demand. So all the crypto people will then say, yeah, crypto is based on supply and demand. That's what it's all based on, supply, demand, supply, demand. But where is there that tied value? What ties it to saying, hey, Bitcoin is worth, $1 million per coin versus $10 million per coin versus $1 per coin? Well, that's supply demand. Well, the same thing is true when you buy a condo or you buy a lemonade stand, but there's what's called an intrinsic value based on cash flow. So if you bought a condo and you could rent it for $800 a month, there's probably a range of values you're willing to pay under any market condition. So you're not going to pay $3 million for a condo where you can rent it for $800, unless maybe it was in your favorite movie in your childhood and you're feeling like a lot of nostalgia and you say, oh my God, I need this condo. That's, brings you a bunch of bliss. Or you're super charitable and you're like, hey, I just want to buy it way above market value to basically be super charitable to whoever you're buying this property from and whoever's the lucky person that is. If that ends up being you, please contact me, at that time. But that said, a lemonade stand, there's also going to be a supply-demand curve as well. If you're running a lemonade stand in Las Vegas during the summer, you're probably going to have a lot more people that want cool lemonade than when you're doing the same thing in Minnesota in the winter. Those people probably are chill enough as it is and probably don't need more chilled drinks to have go about their day. So there's probably going to be less sales. So there's going to be a supply demand, but nonetheless, you're going to look and you're going to say, hey, there's this range of values based on, the cash flow that's being generated. And that's how you're going to value something. With these coins, they are a coin. And so it's not tied to anything. So how do you dictate what that is worth? And that is where a lot of people are struggling and saying, hey, something is worth zero versus it's worth $1 million a coin. Nobody has a good idea on how to value these coins. So what does all this mean, or at least what is my opinion? Well, I believe cryptocurrency is amazing technology. It is here to stay. Crypto technology is creating these immutable databases that can't be changed, that are super secure, and there's a lot of data that's being pushed into these databases, which has a lot of implications for technology, which is great. Now, Do you think the government, though, is sitting, on their hands just watching this? Of course not. They've been experimenting and watching crypto technologies really carefully, both on the regulation side and internally to do it themselves. So one of the risk factors for cryptocurrency is the governments could come out and say, hey, we're going to tax all of this a lot, and it's going to be really hard, or it's going to disincentivize people to use this technology, or they could say, hey, we're going to ban it altogether. And people that don't feel like crypto technology has the potential to be banned because of the decentralized network, and there's probably an argument there to say, hey, can you really shut down everyone's computer at the same time around the world? Well, that's probably hard, but it might disincentivize people enough to where these currencies don't have as much of a say in the economy as they might today. That's a hard thing to do or predict, but governments still are experimenting with their own currencies. Switzerland actually has created a hybrid currency which has a QR code in the currency where you can scan the QR code and that authenticates you saying, hey, I have this currency. So it's like a hybrid cryptocurrency. And there's two benefits to something like that. So one of the things is cryptocurrency, one of the whole ideas is you want to include all these people in this global economy, and you're forgetting that there's all this technology that's based behind it, and some people are not tech oriented. So you might have people that just don't have access to tech, or they don't want to use tech. So it might be like the elderly population might say, hey, we want to use physical dollars, and if you exclude these people, that becomes a problem. So like a QR code hybrid system, that can help solve that. And so the governments are working with these different ideas to make sure everyone's included in the economy. The other thing is having 100% digital based currency. While it might be really, really hard to hack, it's not impossible, and that creates a lot of risk if there's nothing physical, right? So that's my thoughts on cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency, like I said, is here to stay. It's really exciting technology, but where the future holds in cryptocurrency is really hard to say at this time because it is based on supply and demand, and there isn't a fundamental value that people are able to agree or derive on to agree. So if you are going to invest in cryptocurrency, please use caution and please be careful in what you do. Thank you so much. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe in the link below. Thank you.